Hello, it's Jim Hutchins for the Jerusalem Connection Spot Report for this week. In the current issue of the magazine Israel Today, it's a magazine published in Israel by Messianic Jews, there is what, to me, is a very provocative article. It's certainly of interest. The article is entitled, "The Druze of Israel, the Golan and Syria." The Druze are a people, they're an offshoot of Islam, that live northwest of Israel, part of Syria, part of Jordan and Lebanon, even going into Iraq. I want to read just some excerpts from this article. Could Israel's borders expand to the east, the north and the east, past the Jordan River? After decades in which the world, led by the United States, has been calling on Israel to withdraw to the 1967 borders, the borders that were established after the Six-Day War, 1967, a new process has begun. The borders of countries like Syria and Iraq have virtually been erased, raising the question about the wisdom of such American and international demands. Syria was once seen as Israel's most implacable and dangerous enemy. But that threat has greatly diminished because of the Syrian civil war. The regime of President Bashar al-Assad is widely expected to collapse in face of the advances of the Sunni Muslim terrorist groups, including ISIS, al-Nusra Front, and al-Qaeda. This poses a grave problem for the large community of Syrian Druze, an esoteric religion that broke away from mainstream Islam in the 11th century. The Druze people are divided up primarily between Israel, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. They serve in all four armies because their tradition calls for loyalty to the ruling power. As Israel wrested the Golan Heights from Syria during the Six-Day War in 1967, the Druze officers and soldiers in the Israeli army reassured their Syrian brethren in the area that no harm would befall them. And so the Druze and the Golan did not flee toward Damascus, but they stayed put. There is now no more Syria as we knew it. The Druze are now orphaned and abandoned by the Assad regime and facing a bloodbath. And this has prompted the Druze of Israel and the Golan Heights to urge the Jewish state to intervene in Syria on their behalf. At the same time, Israeli leaders are sensitive to the feelings of the Druze community, which has made an important contribution to the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF. If there is a mass exodus of Syrian Jews toward the Golan border, Israel will take action. Could this mean that Israel might send the IDF to link up with the Druze? Very likely. Could Israel's borders expand to the east and to include these new lands and population? And my answer to that would be yes, very likely. And why do I say that? I say that because of the promise that God has made by divine decree, by covenant, that the land promised to Israel will extend all the way to the Euphrates River. That goes halfway into modern-day Iraq. For example, the scriptures tell us in Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, on that day Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, and he said, to your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt, that is the Nile, the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, from the river of Egypt all the way to the Euphrates. That's reiterated by Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 11, where it says, every place where you set your foot will be yours. Your territory will extend from the river, or from the desert to Lebanon, and from the Euphrates River to the Western Sea, which is the Mediterranean Sea. So that is land that has never been, well, it has been governed by David and for a time by Solomon. But it's never been governed, totally occupied and owned as their own, that the covenant promises of God have decreed. I think that's very significant. And I think it's just a matter of time when that will indeed take place. It doesn't look like possibly the immediate future, but it will take place at some time. And I'm reminded of the possible time when that takes place. Zechariah tells us, for example, in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 1, a day of the Lord is coming. I will gather all nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, the women raped. Half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Then, when it looks like all is lost, Israel's back is against the wall, there is no hope, then, the scripture says, Yahweh will go out and fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. That's the second coming. That's the return of Messiah Jesus. And then Yahweh my God will come and all the holy ones with him. Now, what must precede that is a time of great affliction. I think Jeremiah in Jeremiah chapter 30 refers to it as the time of Jacob's trouble. It will be a grim time of affliction and tribulation, not only for the Jews in Israel, but for the whole world. But notice what it says with regard to Israel. Zechariah 13, verse 8. In the whole land, declares Yahweh, 2/3 will be struck down and perish, yet 1/3 will be left in it. This third I will bring into the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name. They are not calling on the name of Yahweh, but they will. It will become so dire, the circumstances will become so severe, they will call on the name of Yahweh. I will say to them, they are my people, and they will say, Yahweh is our God. Yahweh. Jesus said this, you'll not see me again until you cry out, Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. It's going to happen. You can count on it. Till next week, Od Ki Yavo Shiloh, or until Messiah comes, Yivareka Yahweh. Yahweh bless you.